The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into the latest edition, the Thanksgiving week edition of Crossed Flags. And I am solo once again, in case you hadn't noticed by the camera angle that we're on. Matt's still feeling a little bit under the weather, so he's going to take the Thanksgiving holiday weekend to make sure that he does get better. Don't have to worry about a big show this weekend. We're going to take this weekend off as well so that we can all spend time with our families and recuperate. So the next time you'll hear us will be on the next edition of this show, the post-Thanksgiving edition of this show. I'm Steve West. I appreciate you joining us. Molly Robinson is being the producer today, and she'll be assisted a little bit later on by producer John. Lots to get to here. Since we're not going to do a big show, want to give you kind of a rundown of some of the stories that are happening this week. And one of them actually piggybacks off of something that we were talking about last week. You might remember one of the couple of subjects we had was we were wondering about the future of Ford, because it looked like, for all intents and purposes, they were going to be out of the Xfinity, soon-to-be O'Reilly Auto Parts series. Turns out, not actually true. AM Racing kind of put everything on hold when the season ended because Harrison Burton decided he was going to go elsewhere. Probably he's going to a Toyota team. And that left nobody, because everybody else that was affiliated with the Haas factory team, once they switched from Ford to Chevrolet, which they announced during the season, as we talked about last week, everybody just kind of followed them. RSS Racing went off with them and all that. But AM Racing was sitting out there going, well, we're here, but we're not really here. They didn't have any plans. They've been sold to a company called Sigma Performance Services, and they are planning to run Fords next year. So at this point in time, it looks like when we get back to racing in February of 2026, Ford will have one, certainly maybe two cars. They have said that they'll look at a driver lineup here soon, because they're also planning on running a lot in the ARCA Menard series, the main series, the East and the West divisions, and probably something in late models like the Cars Tour. No plans to do anything Cup-wise, no plans to do anything when it comes to the Craftsman Truck Series at this point in time, which is fine. And in listening to the higher-ups talk about it, they said, yeah, we'll probably have an alliance somewhere down the line with a Ford Cup Series operation to help us out a little bit. But you think about this. They're the only operation that runs Fords right now in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, which is what it'll be next year. They've got all the resources. I'm not going to say no excuses, because we're still talking about the bones of AM Racing, but if Sigma Performance Services is very serious about this, they could be a threat. We'll have to see. Like I said, Ford is going to give them everything they can possibly give them. On to some other things. Let's start in the NHRA. Last week on the big show, we talked about, we were hearing rumors that John Force Racing and the Prock family, Austin Prock, his brother and his father, might be separating. And we kept thinking to ourselves, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because if these guys split apart, you're breaking up the 2-year funny car champion running. Why would you break that apart? Well, as you'll be able to see by the statement we're about to show you, they're Splitsville. Don't really know why. It seems like it was done amicably. Usually when things like that happen, it's probably because the guys that are leaving probably either got a really, really great monetary offer. Okay. Or maybe they're starting their own team. And with a couple of championships under their belt, they can certainly get the sponsorship. There is something to be said for having 2 titles on your resume. You'll be able to get sponsors. There's no doubt about it. So we'll see what happens here. It won't take long for John Force to go ahead and find somebody else to run that funny car. I can guarantee you that. That's not going to be a problem. The Procks probably won't have a problem finding a ride, whether it's with another team or a team that they're starting themselves. So we'll find out. But yeah, the surprise of surprises, you actually split up the championship winning team of John Force Racing, and Austin Prock is their driver. Wow. Kind of blows us away, because here's the thing about it. They call this silly season for a reason, right? We look at it and we think, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff going on, and obviously you get a whole lot of rumors, and some rumors you take with a grain of salt. We took this one with a grain of salt, but turned out it was actually true. So things happen, and sometimes you're just floored by it. This one's one of those things that we kind of get a little bit floored by. Another one was what happened in Las Vegas last weekend in the Formula One race. If you watched the race last Saturday evening, U.S. time, you saw Max Verstappen go claim a win, but you saw the McLaren guys hold up pretty well. If that was the last thing you saw, it changed because both McLarens got disqualified. Means 0 points. We'll get to the points here in a minute. What did they get disqualified for, you might ask? Well, these cars are very low to the ground, as you know, and they have what they call a plank underneath, and it is quite literally very low tech. It is a piece of wood that is about an inch and a half wide, about 6 to 10 inches long, give or take. I'm trying to remember the exact figures on that. And at the beginning of the race, it is a specific width screwed into the bottom, the undercarriage of that car. It is literally exposed to the ground. And if that wears, which it will, because if you watch these guys, they go over curbing and it scrapes the bottom of the vehicle, right? Well, if it scrapes off too much of that little wood block right there, and it's not wide enough in the end, I mean, they allow a certain amount. I think it starts off as 10 inches thick, and if it gets to the point where it's 9 or less, and these are numbers that I'm pulling kind of out of my head, but these are close, I'll tell you that right now. If that plank is less than that specified width, you get disqualified. Both of them got disqualified. This really messes with the points because with Max Verstappen claiming a win, we'll first of all take a quick look at the top 3 in points here because Max Verstappen gets 25 points. Neither of the McLaren guys get a point. And what does that mean? It means that what you've got now is a flat-footed tie for second place. Max Verstappen has now moved himself into second place. Lando Norris leads the way, and Oscar Piastri, who is really kind of struggling here down the last few races, he's got problems. This is the situation that we're dealing with right here. McLaren has locked up the Constructors' Cup. They did that a couple of races ago. We don't have to worry about that. This is where the real battle is. Max Verstappen's on a 4 championship in a row win streak. 4 championships in a row. That's what's on the line here. And at this point in time, he's less than 30 points away from the lead. If he claims a win and Lando Norris gets 0 in the next race, and there are only 2 races left, suddenly the championship race is a whole different animal here, isn't it? So this was a huge, huge move. McLaren has basically said, no, we don't have any plans to appeal this move. So that ruling stands. Those points stand. It's getting real tight suddenly in the driver's title. As far as what happens when it comes to the Constructors' Cup Championship, or the teams, if you will, we're going to show you the entire top 10 here. Because right now, Red Bull has jumped over Ferrari. Ferrari at one point in time was in second pretty much all by themselves, and now they're stumbling down the stretch too. But you look at it, McLaren at the top, again, they're the champions. We're just waiting for them to officially be crowned after the next 2 races. Then Mercedes, and really it's Red Bull solely on the back of Max Verstappen. He's been on a hot streak here lately where he's been winning more often than not, and he's been the one that's been pulling all those points for Red Bull. And it has been one whale of a run for him, and it's got them in second place. Now, granted, they're 40 points behind, but 40 points over 2 races, if he could get any help, could jump him up into second. We'll see. Ferrari's going to need some help. And right now, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc don't seem to be the ones that are able to pull that and make that work. Could I be surprised in the final 2 races? I could. But right now, I'm not really seeing it. Got Williams all by themselves there, but then start looking down there in that battle between 6th and about 9th. Suddenly, that's real close. Haas F1's been on a pretty good heater here lately, and they've jumped themselves up from 9th to 7th. And they're within 15 points of Racing Bulls, which is Red Bull's sub-team. So there's stuff to watch out for over the next couple of races here. And they're both going to be in the Middle East. We'll see what happens here. They are also mandated. We talked about this on the big show last weekend. They're mandated. They have to come in and change tires 2 times next week or in the next race at Qatar. Some of the teams aren't really happy about it, but they've got to do it because that's mandated by Formula One. How is that going to mess with everybody? It's a good question. But you're definitely on a two-stop strategy. I'm thinking there might be a team that might try a 3-stop strategy just to keep really, really fresh Pirelli rubber on those cars and see how good they can do. So this is going to be a fun thing to watch down the stretch. But all of this on a McLaren double disqualification. Don't see that much in Formula One. Now we get to the really, really serious stuff. And this is where producer Molly's work comes in post, because she's going to have to leave some of these things up for you pretty good time big so that you can see them. But over the past, really right about after we got done with the big show last Saturday, Bob Pockris and some of the other media people started coming up with things that were found in Discovery. Let's put it that way. Of course, we all know we've got this lawsuit between NASCAR on one side and 2311 and Front Row Motorsports on the other side. And when courts ordered discovery, for example, it's kind of wide-ranging. And suddenly text messages got uncovered. The first one that we're going to deal with comes to a series that actually hasn't run in a few years now. This was that series that Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham began, and it ran for 3 years, that Superstar Racing Experience. Why NASCAR would feel threatened about the Superstar Racing Experience or SRX series, I really don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But when you read these texts, and it starts right here with Justin Marks, who was the owner of Trackhouse Racing, he decided he was going to get back behind the wheel. Now, one of the reasons he retired was because he had gotten an injury that was pretty severe, and doctors said, you're going to have to stay out of this for a little while. We're not really comfortable with it. But he finally got approval to get back on a very limited basis, short track racing. Well, that's all that SRX is, or was. It's all short tracks. Small short tracks of 1/2 to 3/4 of a mile tops, but most of them were 1/4 mile to 1/2 mile tracks, little bull rings as they called them. So Justin Marks thought, yeah, it'd be a great opportunity for him to get back behind the wheel, kind of satisfy that itch one more time before he just started concentrating on the ownership of Trackhouse Racing. Is Justin Marks racing SRX? Yep, saw that too. Depressing. Who are these between? Look at the names. Steve O'Donnell. Big muckety-muck at NASCAR along with Ben Kennedy, who's basically the guy behind all the scheduling. Why are we threatened by this? SRX doesn't run the same cars that you do. In fact, they ran their own car. They ran for a number of weekends throughout the course of a year, 6. When it started off on a Saturday night and then they moved to Thursday night, 6 weeks out of the year, and you're worried about them, and they're running all short tracks when you're going out and you're running everything from Daytona and Talladega to Atlanta Motor Speedway and Charlotte, and everything from basically a 2.66 mile track to a 1/2 mile track and a number of road courses. These guys weren't really bothering you. Text slide number 2 here shows that they were still very, very worried about the SRX series and not really sure why. I'm still baffled by this, but they seem to think that they needed to go in and possibly even get legal involved. Why are you worried about legalities when it comes to the Superstar Racing Experience? Again, there's all forms of racing out there. There's all forms of stock car racing out there. This shouldn't be a bother to you in any way, shape, or form. The fact that NASCAR was very upset by this tells me that they were being uber territorial. But yet they're going to turn around and in the lawsuit, or in the response to the lawsuit by 2311 and Front Row, they're going to say that they're more than happy and 2311 and Front Row can do just as well in any other series? You wanted to squash the SRX series, which basically had nothing to do with you. They weren't battling you at all. And yeah, a couple of other drivers, because they happened to run on a Thursday night, took the opportunity to go ahead and race in it. Why not? They're racers. It's what they do. Bill Elliott and Chase Elliott were battling each other in the season finale in season number 1. Kyle Busch raced in it. A number of active Cup Series drivers raced in it. But that didn't mean that they were quitting you. The SRX Series didn't have anything to do with you. Nothing at all. But yet they're going to go out there and they're going to complain about it. And they're going to threaten legal action over a series that technically now no longer exists. At this point in time, I am a little curious as to what they're going to be thinking about Ray Evernham's new venture. Because if you think about what Ray Evernham did, he washed his hands of the SRX Series in basically their final year. He was still the part owner along with Tony Stewart, but he wasn't dealing with it like he was the first year. The first year, he was effectively the crew chief over all the cars because the SRX Series was thought to be very, very similar to the old IROC Series in that you're all running very identically prepared cars, so it's on the driver. That's what it was all about. Well, Ray Evernham turned around and thought, hey, I wanted to make it like the IROC Series. Why don't I go get the old IROC Series? So he went out and he bought the rights to the name. And he started talking to all the people that owned all the old IROC cars. And now he's ready to go back and try and do that again. And he's talking about trying to get a bunch of different drivers from a bunch of different motorsports, however you wish to put it, specialties, from all these different series, like the original IROC was supposed to be. Try and get a little NASCAR, try and get a little Indycar, try and get a little NHRA, a little Formula One, a little this, a little that. Try and bring them all together in as identically prepared cars as you possibly can get and put them out on one track and, hey, let's go have some fun and let's play a little bit with the idea of who's better, NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, NHRA, whatever other series you can think of. Are they worried about that? Because if they are, why? IROC Series isn't talking about running a 36-race season. At this point, they're not even talking about running a 10-race season. All Ray Evernham is talking about right now when it comes to the new IROC Series, presented, by the way, by Chevrolet, one of NASCAR's 3 manufacturers, is saying he would like to be able to advance it to the point where they got to racing on a regular basis with newer cars and do what the original IROC Series was supposed to do. That's it. SRX wasn't worried about it. They said, hey, it's open to anybody and everybody. If you can race and you want to, let us know. We'll put you in a car. The original idea was also to get at least one driver from that track, whatever track it was, to go ahead and get him a shot, him or her, a shot up against some of these big names like Tony Stewart, like Haley Deegan, like Michael Waltrip, like Ryan Newman, or a Kyle Busch, or a Chase Elliott, or a Bill Elliott. You see where I'm going with that. It's a dream opportunity on national television. The first year, it was done by CBS. Prime time on a Saturday night, CBS. Then they moved it to Thursdays. They put it on ESPN, and it revived Thursday Night Thunder. So again, nationwide platform, Thursday night. No other racing going on that night. Not even the Truck Series. They were battling no one. They weren't trying to pull anybody from there on a permanent basis. They were just saying, hey, if you happen to be open and you want to do it, come on, we'll find you a car. SRX Series is nothing, especially now, but it was nothing as far as a competitor to NASCAR. Absolutely zero competition. Why in the world are they worried about that? Why do they think they need to get legal involved in it? Those are just 2 texts. You ready for another one? This one going after legendary owner Richard Childress. Are you kidding me? Now, obviously you need to leave this one up because, I'm saying this right now live for producer Molly because there's a lot to try and digest here between these 2 different entities here, which one of them is considered to be, I think, Steve Phelps. But Steve O'Donnell's in here again. And he's talking about how suddenly you've got a situation where how do you put this? Well, just look at Steve O'Donnell's first one. Actually, you have one of the voices for Fox and Darrell Waltrip, the owner of multiple Cup cars, in Tony Stewart, our most popular driver for years, one of our champs' fathers. This exhibit is that nobody gives a blank about what's been going on in their careers. Pay them some money and they're all in. The guy who cried about safety every single day is in a boxcar without safer barriers. There's the other SRX notification there when you stop and think about it. So they're sitting there complaining about that. I'm baffled by this. I'm thoroughly baffled by this. They're so worried about what their drivers or team owners or somebody that's in the Fox booth. It's not Darrell Waltrip, I apologize. They're talking about Michael Waltrip in this situation because Darrell had already retired. But they're so worried about what's going on at a series that really doesn't have anything to do with them. And we covered it. We covered it on the big show back when it was the SRX series. And it was in action because that was fun. I actually had the chance on that first year to go up and call one of the races up at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway to see it in person, to see how everything kind of all came together in person. Was fantastic. And I got an up close and personal look at those cars, had the chance to talk to a couple of the drivers along with Matt, the unfortunately absent Matt today. He could fill in more on this. But we had the chance to look at these cars. We had the chance to hear them being interviewed and you know, be around them as they were talking about these cars. These cars aren't anything like what NASCAR had. And there were no plans by Ray Evernham and or Tony Stewart, the two owners of the SRX series, to go after NASCAR with this. They were just looking for something that was akin to the old IROC series. Something that they could go out and have fun with. Get a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of different series together and go racing. And as it turned out, they did. They got guys from the NHRA and Indycar in there. Some active, some retired. They loved it. They all loved it. You want to know why? It was something different. And they remembered the good times of the IROC series. Some of them had raced in it. Others remembered hearing all the stories about it. But this is what they're worried about? Doesn't make sense. The last one from Steve O'Donnell there. Wait till Junior says that he's running an event. Matter of time, they'll go to North Wilkesboro, SMI, and Junior. And if we're not careful, we need to be the first back. So for all of the talk that they had about trying to get back to their roots at Rockingham and North Wilkesboro, they were afraid that the SRX series was going to do it first. So it had nothing to do really with them getting back to their roots. It had to do with the fact that they were scared that the SRX series would go there first. That's what you're worried about. Seriously, that's what you're worried about. NASCAR, you're the king of motorsports here in the United States. But I can tell you right now, you keep up stuff like this and stuff like this keeps coming out, you're going to lose that grip. You'll lose that grip. There was a time when IndyCar was the king. If you looked at all of the ratings and you go back to the 1970s, it was IndyCar that was the most popular motorsport in the United States of America. You want to know where it began to change? It really goes to where producer Molly's heart and soul is. Sports. Our friends over at Jocks, they're an ESPN affiliate. When ESPN started off, they were showing amateur softball leagues, Australian rugby, Canadian league football, ping pong. Dude, they were showing anything they could get their hands on because they didn't have rights to Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA. They didn't have rights to college basketball. They had no quote-unquote major sports rights. So they couldn't air it. They could show highlights, which they did on SportsCenter, but they couldn't show the event. So when they realized that NASCAR is available because the only thing that was airing on the network was CBS doing the live flag-to-flag coverage of the Daytona 500, which had only started in 1979 anyway. They said, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to get actual live coverage of something. And suddenly NASCAR begins to explode in popularity because you get guys like Richard Petty, who's still winning races, Darrell Waltrip, who's at the height of his career at that point in time. He was right then about in the process of winning his 3 championships. Dale Earnhardt is starting to come up and become that guy. And all those other names that we can think of that are going into the Hall of Fame now, the Ricky Rudds, the Rusty Wallaces, the Mark Martins, and so on. All of those guys were made superstars by the likes of an ESPN because ESPN needed programming. And NASCAR was sitting there ripe for the picking. But now, it's all changed. They've gone to the point now where they're on Fox for the first 14 races of the year. Oh, I'm sorry. They're really on Fox Sports 1. Next year, when we get into the 2026 season, of the 14 races that Fox Sports has, only 6 of them will be on Fox. The other 8 will be on Fox Sports 1. Then we go streaming with Amazon Prime. Then you go straight cable with TNT. And then you go to NBC Sports. NBC Sports is like Fox Sports. The beginning of the year, Fox Sports, like I said, has 14 races. End of the year, NBC Sports has 14 races. Funny thing about NBC Sports is the fact that 10 of those races are going to end up on the USA Network. They're only going to put 4 on NBC. And they're paying a lot of money, in the billions, for those 14 races between now and 2031 when this particular TV contract runs out. But they choose to shove them all over to cable. And yet these guys were worried about the SRX series going to North Wilkesboro. So that's why they decided to kind of pressure the SMI division, which the owner of North Wilkesboro, to go and see, hey, can we go ahead and fix that track up and maybe we can run on it so that we can eliminate the SRX run? That's ridiculous. You're worried about something you don't need to worry about. Didn't need to worry about it when it was around. Certainly don't need to worry about it now. And I do wonder if they're going to worry about it when it comes to the IROC series. Even though the IROC series really isn't a competitor to them either. But then you go around and you turn around and you start doing more texts going from the SRX series to talk about a current owner, a championship owner. Let's bring up the next text run here. Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell, president and chairman of NASCAR, going back and forth. NASCAR, pure and simple, enough. We need to have legal take a shot in this. These guys are playing stupid. We need a knife to this trash series. See where we're going with this? We're still talking SRX, but now we've got the president and the chairman talking about it. They want legal to look into it and they need to kill it? I mean, in the end, it kind of died on its own. Let things happen normally. It's that old competition thing. A few weeks ago, we got to mentioning it here on this podcast, as a matter of fact. I run a radio station. Producer Molly runs a radio station. She decides, as the new program director or owner or whatever, that she wants to take me on. And she'll get a lot of publicity at the beginning because now there's not just one doing this particular format on radio, but now there are 2. We got a battle. I can do one of 2 things. I can go hiding because I've got competition and I'm afraid of it. Or number 2, I can go out there and I can say, I welcome the competition. But at the same time, I'm not really going to worry about mentioning it because if I acknowledge my competition, my listeners might go check it out. So my response is to do what? Technically, nothing. I'm not worried about it because I was the master of that particular format when it came in. And if I'm doing my job and my radio station sounds as good as it needs to sound within that particular format, whatever it is, news, music, whatever, then what she's doing is in reaction to me. But she could easily flip it because all I would have to do is go running scared. And what do I mean by running scared? Could be one of two things. Number one, I react to every change that she makes. She does news at a different time than I do. Suddenly I switch to the time that she did it. That's in reaction to her. Now she's in the lead. SRX never had a lead on this. Truth be told, NASCAR never had a lead on this either, because we're talking about two entirely different racing entities. But if you want to take the apples to apples look at this, NASCAR's got ratings up here, SRX has ratings here. See where I'm going with that? But yet NASCAR is reacting to the SRX series. It doesn't make sense, especially for the NASCAR chairman and president to be doing this. Let's go to the next set of texts here, Producer Molly. Here we go. Richard Childress, this is Steve Phelps and Brian Herbst. Richard Childress needs to be taken out back and flogged. He's a stupid redneck who owes entire fortune to NASCAR. Really? Welcome to the old phrase that goes into the racing world of how do you make a small fortune in racing? Start with a big one. I can guarantee you Richard Childress has made money off of being in NASCAR, but does he owe his entire living to NASCAR? No. Richard Childress is a good businessman. Richard Childress is a guy who knew the kind of driver that he wanted in his car, and he put that man in the car. His name, Dale Earnhardt. You know, that guy that won 7 Cup Series titles? That guy. Richard Childress doesn't owe his life or his fortune or his fame to NASCAR. If he owes it to anybody, it's Dale Earnhardt. And Richard Childress would tell you that. Now, has Richard Childress benefited since the unfortunate death of Dale Earnhardt? No, not really. There are things that Richard Childress needs to understand that he needs to get done and needs to fix within his own company. But at the same point in time, I don't think he owes NASCAR a thing. He just found that that was one of the best ways that he was willing to go and put his team in there and go racing. Richard Childress used to be a racer in NASCAR and realized his best destiny was probably actually not being behind the wheel, but being the owner. And once you realize that, he probably went NASCAR because that was what he grew up on and that was what he raced. But if Richard Childress had wanted to, he could have pivoted. He could have put an NHRA team out there. He could have put an Indycar team out there. I don't think it would have been any sweat off of his brow either way. So NASCAR, stop thinking so much of yourself here. Brian Herbst said, I didn't go there, kept it high level for now. Ongoing conversations, figuring out where all the puzzle pieces land. How's it going thus far? We got one more set, right? Is that right, Molly? One more set of texts. Short-sighted and self-serving. Richard Childress is an idiot. If they don't like the state of the sport, sell your charter and get out. That's what Tony Stewart did. Think about that for a second. That's exactly what Tony Stewart did. He was unhappy with what was going on within NASCAR, and he told Gene Haas, I'm selling, I'm out. Gene Haas decided he was going to keep one charter and the two, what we used to call Xfinity Series teams. So he's a 3-car operation as opposed to at one point in time having been a 6-car operation with 4 Cup Series teams and 2 Xfinity. Richard Childress, he can be unhappy. He can complain about the current state of things if he wants to. He's allowed to. This is trying to put your thumb on things and telling him get out. I mean, you can see those texts right there, back and forth between Steve Phelps and Brian Herbst, an executive within NASCAR. This makes no sense whatsoever. Now you've got infighting. You want unhappiness. You want people to be dissuaded from your leadership. This will do it. This will do it in spades. And if the fact that they thought that this wasn't going to end up somehow, some way, shape, or form going public, ooh, man, how wrong are they? So far, they haven't said anything. There's been no statements from anybody within NASCAR regarding this. The one thing that we've heard is that with this case going to trial next coming week on December 1st, technically, these aren't supposed to go there because this technically doesn't have any part of that particular case. But if something opens up, if there's a door that opens up somewhere by one of the lawyers on one side or the other, if you don't think that they'll put this in, you're wrong. Because this right here will sway somebody against NASCAR. And remember this, yes, this is going to federal court trial starting December 1st. In Charlotte, North Carolina, the home of NASCAR. There in Daytona Beach. And in and around Charlotte, North Carolina, all within a 50 to 100 mile radius, give or take, are all of these Cup Series shops, including Richard Childress's. And now that these are out, and they will have been out for a week, week and a half before the trial, now the federal government, that federal court, has to find 12 jurors and a select number of alternates, generally 6, who either never saw these, never read these, or don't know anything about it. And with NASCAR being as big of a business as it is in and around the Charlotte, North Carolina area, that might be a little more difficult than one might think. And on top of that, Richard Childress just put out a statement, which we'll show you right now, where he's thinking about actually going after NASCAR legally for, as he says, defamation, defamatory statements. That's defamation. Going to be pretty hard for NASCAR to prove that there was no defamation in there because there's the texts. They're in the public now. NASCAR executives historically viewed and treated many team owners like Mr. Childress, who had devoted their lives to strengthening the sport for its fans, sponsors, and all who competed in, equally disappointed for the NASCAR fans, whom Mr. Childress closely identifies, given his humble and hardworking background. And yet, here we sit. NASCAR has gotten a black eye over this lawsuit with 2311 and Front Row Motorsports since this started. Since this whole charter thing began, this has been a big black eye on NASCAR. This right here blackened the other eye. Big time. I'm going to be real interested, and of course, we'll be following it up. I don't know as anything's going to happen between now and when this trial starts, or let's just put it this way, between now and next Tuesday when we record the next edition of Crossed Flags. But if something happens, you know that we'll have it, and we'll be talking about it right here. Again, no big show this weekend. Thanksgiving weekend, we're taking it off. Have a great time with your family, your friends, traveling, whatever it is that you're doing, staying home, and eating yourself into oblivion. And I hope you do, and I hope you have a great time. And if you're going out on Black Friday, number one, God bless you. Please have patience. Try and have patience. I know that a whole lot of other people aren't going to have it, but please try and have patience because that's the only real way you're going to get around all of this. So yeah, if you're going out shopping on Black Friday, I'm praying for you. No doubt about it. But whatever it is that you're doing this weekend, have a great one. We'll talk to you next Tuesday. Maybe we'll have an update on all of this. We'll see. On behalf of producer John, producer Molly, Matt, everybody else involved in Crossed Flags, a racing podcast, and the Championship Racing Network, we all wish you a very happy Thanksgiving and safe Black Friday, whatever it is that you're doing. And we'll talk to you next week right here with the next edition of Crossed Flags.